This month, the latest Treasury numbers came out, and for the first time ever, US national debt is about to hit $40 trillion. Right now, it's already sitting at around 39.7 trillions. Now, if the government keeps borrowing money at the current pace, we'll likely cross 40 trillions in just a few months. And while you're watching this video, the government is adding roughly $90,000 of new debt every single second. Not every day, every single second. And you've probably seen the headlines, right? America is bankrupt, the dollar is collapsing. This is the end of the empire. So stay till the very end, because the most important part isn't about the 40 trillion number. It's what's already happening behind the scenes, and it affects all of us. Let's get started. $40 trillion is too big for anyone to picture, I understand, so let's shrink it down. The United States has about 343 million people. Split the debt, and every person, including babies, carries around $115,000 to $120,000. Per household, it is close to $292,000, according to the Joint Economic Committee. Economists look at a different number though, debt compared to the whole country, aka debt to GDP. Right now, US federal debt sits around 126% of GDP. The country owes more than everything it produces in one full year. 20 years ago, that ratio was just nearly 60%. It has more than doubled. Okay, so what makes up the $40 trillion debt? Who owes that much money? There are two very different parts. First is the debt held by the public, which is around $32 trillion. That is the money the government owes to the outside people and institutions, banks, mutual funds, foreign governments, regular folks who buy treasury bonds. This is the part the market watch closely because those people can decide to stop lending money out. The other part is intra-governmental holdings, around $7.7 to $7.8 trillion. That is the money the government basically owes, well, itself. Mostly the Social Security and Medicare trust funds. Like moving cash from one pocket to the other in the same pants. It matters for long-term promises to retirees, but it does not create the same market pressure. Now here's the number that should worry you more than the big headline. Interest alone on the debt is already running over $1 trillion a year. The Congressional Budget Office projects net interest will hit around $1 trillion in fiscal year 2026 and keep climbing. To put that into perspective, that is larger than the entire defense budget in some recent years. Interest is eating up roughly 14% of every federal dollar spent, and that share is expected to grow some more. So picture a household that spends 14% of every dollar just on the minimum interest rate of its credit card. Not for food, not for rent, only interest. That is the path that federal budget is on. Now that we understand how immense and scary this debt is, the real question is what happened next? What can a government with this much debt can actually do? So the biggest misunderstanding is this. A country like the United States does not go bankrupt the way a person or a company does. You cannot seize the assets of a whole nation. There is no court that forces America into liquidation. The United States borrows in its own currency, the dollar. Unlike Greece or Argentina, it never truly runs out of cash to pay a bond that comes due. It can always, well, create more dollars or print more money. That sounds comforting, right? But it is not free. Being able to pay is not the same as paying without a cost. When debt gets this large, a government has four main options. First one is to monetize the debt. The Federal Reserve buys government bonds and creates new money in the process. This happened on a big scale in 2020 and 2021. The problem is simple. More money chasing the same goods and services pushes the price up. That is inflation as we know it. We already tried that experiment, doing it on a much larger scale to cover 40 trillion risk serious damage to the value of the dollar and therefore to grocery bills and savings. The second option is to raise tax or cut spending. On paper, this is the cleanest fix. In politics, it is extremely hard. Cutting spending means touching Social Security, Medicare, defense, or programs millions of people rely on. Raising taxes means asking businesses and households for more of their income. Serious attempts usually hit the same wall. No one wants to be the politician who does it, so the decision keeps getting delayed. The third option is to grow the economy faster than the debt. If the economy expands fast enough, the debt to GDP ratio falls even without paying anything down. This is roughly how America reduced its huge debt war after World War II. The catch is, it needs strong continuous growth year after year, and right now, debt is still rising faster than the economy. And the fourth option is to lose the confidence of the people who lend money. If investors, banks, pension funds, and foreign governments start to doubt that America is handling the debt carefully, they will demand higher interest rates to keep lending. Higher rates means the government has to borrow even more money just to cover the interest. The debt grows faster. Investors get more nervous, and that is a debt spiral. Economists worry about the slow tightening far more than a sudden overnight crash. In real life, a mix of all four is already happening quietly at the same time. So why has America not faced a Greek-style crisis? Well, the biggest reason is that the dollar is still the world's main reserve currency. The dollar is involved in the large majority of global foreign exchange deals. Central banks around the world still hold US Treasury securities as one of their safest assets. That creates a steady worldwide demand for American debt that almost no other country has. Greece could not print euros. Argentina has defaulted many times because investors did not trust its currency or its central banks. America both controls its own currency and issues the currency the world still treats as the safest place to park their money. That special position is not a law of nature, it is a privilege. It depends completely on the rest of the world continuing to believe America will handle that privilege carefully. So that is the global scale talk, but what about the everyday life? What high federal debt actually does to everyday people? Well, first is the interest rates. The government keeps issuing more debt. It competes with businesses, home buyers, and car buyers for the same pool of money to borrow. More competition tends to push rates higher. That is one big reason mortgage rates and credit card rates have stayed high in recent years. The second is the housing. Now, higher rates mean higher monthly payments for the same house. That is one reason buying the first home has become harder for the younger Americans even before you look at rising home prices. The next effect is on the stock market. In the short run, markets often ignore the debt, right? Stocks can still go up. As you can see, we just had an all-time high on the SP 500. Now, serious long-term forecasts from the Congressional Budget Office show that interest costs slowly crowding out the other government spending and adding uncertainty for people investing for the long haul. AKA, this bubble will burst, we just don't know when. And the last major effect is on the dollar. Now, if global investors ever truly lose confidence in how America manages its budget, the dollar weakens. A weaker dollar makes imported goods, electronics, clothes, cars, and oil more expensive for every American household. So who actually pays the price? Well, the government, obviously, but not in the way that a person feels. Now, the people who feel it are the young Americans trying to buy a first home at higher rates, retirees depending on programs that face future funding pressure, and lower income households who spend most of their money on just basic needs like food and water, and therefore feel inflation the hardest. There is another country that's in a worse state than the US, and that is Japan. Now, people often say Japan's debt is over 200% of its GDP, and nothing bad happened. The US is only at 123%. That's true, but Japan is very different from the US. There are three reasons. First, according to Japan's Ministry of Finance 2025 Debt Management Report, around 88% of Japanese government bonds are held by domestic investors, including the Bank of Japan, commercial banks, insurance companies, pension funds, and Japanese households. Foreign investors only have about 12%. That matters because Japan relies far less on overseas investors to finance its debt. If global investors become nervous, there is much less risk of a sudden wave of foreign selling. Second, Japan has traditionally had a large domestic savings base. Those savings flows into banks, insurers, and pension funds, which are among the biggest buyers of government bonds. In other words, Japan finances much of its debt using its own savings rather than depending heavily on foreign capital. Third, Japan is one of the world's largest net creditors. According to Japan's Ministry of Finance, its net international investment position reached around 562 trillion yen at the end of 2025. meaning Japan owns far more assets overseas than foreigners own in Japan. That makes Japan one of the world's largest net creditors, ranking among the top 3 globally alongside Germany and China. The United States, however, is the complete opposite. America is one of the world's largest net debtors, meaning the rest of the world owns far more US assets than Americans own abroad. So while Japan's debt looks much larger on paper, its financial position is fundamentally different. That's why economists say comparing the two countries using only the debt to GDP ratio can be misleading. So to understand the real risk, you have to look at who owns the debt, where the funding comes from, and the country's overall financial position. Alright, now that you understand all of this, what happens the exact day that the debt clock rose past $40 trillion? Well, to be honest, nothing dramatic. No alarm goes off at the Treasury. Markets will probably shrug the same way that they mostly shrugged for the past $30 trillion and $35 trillion mark. 40 trillion is a round number that matters to us humans. It is not a switch that triggers a crisis inside the system. That does not make the number meaningless though. The problem is just the trend. The trend has only one direction. It's up and it's getting faster. Remember, the most dangerous part is not the $40 trillion mark. It is the interest cost that now grows on its own no matter what Congress decides to spend on other programs. Even if the government froze every other category of spending tomorrow, the interest bill would keep rising because the existing debt is already so large that it compounds like minimum payments on a credit card. America will not collapse tomorrow. It is not turning into Argentina next year, and hyperinflation is not a sure thing in the near future. The dollar's reserve status, the size and the depth of the US economy, and the ability to borrow in its own currency give the United States room that almost no other country has. That room is not unlimited and it is not free. It shows up as the interest costs eating a larger share of the federal budget, higher borrowing costs for everyone else, and a thinner safety margin if another world pandemic or financial crisis arrives. The real question was never when does America collapse. The real question is how expensive we are willing to let the safety net become before we are forced to choose one of the 4 options that I listed above. That choice is not waiting for some future crisis meeting. It is being made right now in every budget Congress passes, and every year the decision is pushed further into the future. So what can you do with all of this? Well, do not panic and do not ignore it either. The governments cannot save you. It's busy saving itself. You have to do it on your own. Try to strive for higher paying jobs, save money, buy assets, and just wait for the inevitable. If this video helped you, make sure to like and subscribe to CryptoNinjas for more contents like this, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Daily out.